To most NBA fans, it may feel like forever since the last time the New York Knicks were a competitive team. Back then, Carmelo Anthony was in the MVP conversation. LeBron James still hadn't won any championships. And Steph Curry hadn't been selected for any All-Star teams. And heading into the season, there weren't any signs things were about to change. Most people thought the team wouldn't be able to make it back to the playoffs without acquiring a star or two. But since they've been one of the worst teams in the league for a long time, most elite players wouldn't even consider the idea of trying to bring back the glory to Madison Square Garden. In other words, they'd have to raise a star of their own. However, it wasn't clear if they had any players capable of turning into a franchise's cornerstone. Most of their prospects had been unimpressive, and their veterans had already established a role for themselves. But as it turns out, they did. And it was perhaps the least expected among their pieces. Julius Randle, the once maligned forward, is finally starting to live up to his potential, and the Knicks are loving it. But how did he manage to turn things around? Will he be able to keep playing this well? And most importantly, is he part of New York's plans for the future? Let's take a look into it. Randle's transformation into an All-Star was anything but smooth. Unlike those lottery picks who managed to prove themselves in their early seasons, Randle was hit by adversity from day one and had to play catch-up as he tried to make a name for himself. After enjoying a solid run with Kentucky, falling just shy of an NCAA title, the power forward declared his eligibility for the 2014 draft and was ultimately selected by the Lakers with the 7th pick. At the moment, it wasn't clear what his role would be with the purple and gold. The team was coming off its first season without making the playoffs since 2005, and even though it didn't look like there was a clear path to make it back to the postseason, most people expected them to straighten the ship sooner rather than later. But as we all know, things only kept getting worse for the Lakers during the next few years. And unfortunately for them, Randle could do nothing but watch from the sidelines for the better part of his rookie season. Just 14 minutes into his pro debut, he broke his right tibia and was ruled out for the rest of the season a couple of days later. So, as the team kept on piling up the losses, the focus shifted to Randle's eventual return during the following year. Once he was allowed to play, he slowly started to show what he could do. He was far from a dominant force, and since he was trying to make up for the lost time, he had to deal with the struggles that most rookies go through in their first year. However, he found a way to average a double-double during his second year in the league while also showing his body was finally prepared to go through the grind of a full season. From that point on, he kept making small improvements as an all-around player. But his role was inconsistent with the Lakers. With the addition of players like D'Angelo Russell, Brandon Ingram, and Kyle Kuzma, Randle was always treated like a complementary piece. And when it became time to decide on his contract, the team decided to let him go. He decided to join the Pelicans in the summer of 2018, and even though there weren't high expectations surrounding him, he eventually became a bright spot in what ended up being a season full of turmoil for New Orleans. As the season progressed, it became evident the team could not repeat the success from the year before, and problems started to emerge. Eventually, they had to deal with the firing of GM Dell Demps and the trade request of Anthony Davis. But despite the many issues his team was facing, Randle found a way to have the best season of his career. He averaged career highs in points per game and three-point shooting. And even though he was still far from turning into a star, it became clear he could be more than a role player. So when free agency came around, he decided to leave the Pelicans and signed a contract with a Knicks team that was desperate after missing on all the big names they had been chasing. But even though the team made Randle its biggest acquisition of the 2019 offseason, they didn't make things easy for him. Before anyone could notice, New York had also signed Taj Gibson, Bobby Portis, and Marcus Morris, thus creating one of the most unbalanced rosters in the league. As should have been expected, the Knicks finished the season with one of the worst records in the league. However, while their excess of front-court players didn't do them any favors, Julius also failed to live up to expectations. The team didn't need him to play like a star, but they expected him to become their offensive leader, and even though he managed to produce solid numbers, his performance on the court left a lot to be desired. He often forced things, taking shots he should have passed and making spin moves that resulted in turnovers. When things didn't go his way, all he did was complain to the refs, and somehow he kept on repeating the same mistakes over and over again throughout the season. When everything was said and done, it became hard to find a Knicks fan that didn't want him to be traded away. He was a big part of why the team was struggling, and if he continued playing like that, it probably would have been a matter of time before he was forced to look for a new home. But they wouldn't give up on him so easily. As a matter of fact, when the team started its search for a new head coach, the front office decided to ask him what kind of coach he would like to have. And when he said he wanted someone who would challenge him, Leon Rose and his team found a way to deliver. Soon after, Tom Thibodeau was named as their new head coach, but Rose made sure Thibodeau wouldn't be the only one challenging their best player. He told Randle he wanted him to come as a better player once the next season started, and so Julius accepted the challenge. While other teams were busy in Orlando and the league was trying to figure out when it would be best to start a new season, Randle was working on his body to get in the best shape of his life. He also kept in touch with Thibodeau to make sure that they were always on the same page. Most importantly, he took some time to think about the things he did wrong during his first year in New York. He realized he had to become a better leader, and to do that, he would need to set the bar for the rest of his teammates on both ends of the court. So once the season got going, he was ready to show the world the new Randle, a smarter and better player that was capable of reading opposing defenses and reacting accordingly. He learned how to differentiate when to be aggressive and when to make a play for his teammates. As a result, he's been averaging a career-high 5.5 assists per game while also becoming one of the best passing big men in the league. But that's only the tip of the iceberg. The extended break gave him enough time to work on his once unreliable jump shot, and the results couldn't have been better. He's now making over 40% of his three-point attempts and over 80% of his free throws, both career highs. But of course, that's not enough when you play for Thibodeau. When he's around, the first thing he'll demand from his players is their best effort on the defensive end. And so far, Randle has also delivered on that aspect of his game. His defensive rating of 107.1 and rebounding average of 11.1 is also career highs, and they're both parts of the reason why the Knicks have become one of the best defensive teams in the league after ranking in the bottom 10 the year before. In short, Randle's transformation hasn't been a coincidence. It happened because he put in the work required to fix the things he used to do wrong and improve on the things he was already good at. And the best part about it is that it's helped his team win games. Despite being in his 7th season, he's yet to make the playoffs. Similarly, the Knicks have failed to reach the postseason in the last 7 seasons. But things seem to be different this time around. The team is over 500 heading into the break. For only the 3rd time in the last 20 years, they have a positive record after 35 games. And there's reason to believe they'll keep like that during the second half of the season. Randle is a big part of that, and his selection as a first-time All-Star proves it. But where do things go from here? Well, his contract will be up after next season, and if he keeps playing like this, he should receive offers from many teams around the league. After all, almost everyone could use a two-way point forward. He's already mentioned his desire to stay with the Knicks in the long term. But do they feel the same way about him? Some people believe the front office should be paying close attention to any calls made to ask about Randle's availability. Of course, the idea of trading an all-star for young prospects or draft picks, that'd be foolish. But what if the Wizards offered Bradley Beal in return? We can't tell whether something similar will eventually happen or not. But if it does, should the team remain loyal to Randle, or should it try to send him away if a good offer comes around? In the past, the team has made some questionable decisions when it comes to trying to acquire star players or even former All-Stars. So there's a chance they could try to do something similar once again. But considering the decisions they've made since Leon took over, we believe things could be different. They already decided to give another chance to their players, and the results have been impressive. Not only Randle has taken a step forward, but R.J. Barrett has also been having a breakout season. And the play of Emmanuel quickly makes it seem like the Knicks already have a decent core in place. And if they do make the playoffs, there's a good chance star players start considering the idea of playing for the Knicks once again. So maybe the team should leave things untouched for the time being. In any case, the things Randle is doing in his 7th season are nothing short of impressive. His hard work had helped him to become an all-around threat on offense and a valuable asset on defense. But most importantly, his improved leadership is shaping what could end up being the start of a new era for the Knicks. He's helping them do what no other person has managed to do before, and we can only hope things keep going well for him and his team. But now, do you believe the Knicks should keep building around him? Or would they be better by looking for a trade? Let us know in the comments. We hope you've enjoyed today's video, and if you did, remember to like it and subscribe to our channel for more NBA content. We are Courtside.